Good morning, friends and foes, and thank you for tuning in to today's Freshest Vitamins. Now, today we're going to go into a little bit of a review here, because yesterday I watched the latest Star Wars films, The Last Jedi, and boy do I have thoughts! I have things to say, and the internet is luckily there for me to share them. Wonderful. Anyway, just before we get started, I will be talking about spoilers, but I will be parting the video into not spoilers and spoilers. Some of you might highly disagree with me, and if you do, please comment in the comments below and argue with me. Tell me why I'm wrong, because do you know what? I love Star Wars. I would love to be wrong. Don't think I am though. First off, we're going to start with the non-spoiler kind of review part. The thing is, the film thematically it's not great. It's very badly paced, and it feels like there have been multiple editors who have been at it multiple times. Like, the first part is very choppy and it jumps between plot lines all the time, and then in the middle it's kind of more joined, and in the end, yeah, we get some good shots that were in the trailer as well, but they're only there for so briefly, and most of it is thanks to the location. And it sort of feels like they were trying to build so much into it that it all sort of just got a little bit messy and convoluted, and you feel like you're getting too much and that the characters you care about aren't getting enough, if that makes sense. And as far as like the plot itself goes, it's trying very hard to tackle a couple of like big things, like a couple of points that is trying very hard to drill into you, but it's so on the nose and it's so like in your face in every single scene and every single plot line, that you end up kind of just thinking like, okay, fine, I get it. Fine, I get it. Can we move on to some cool Star Wars shit now? Okay, so as far as watching it goes, for you who haven't watched it yet, I mean, fine, go watch it if you really like Star Wars, because there are shots in there that are, they're good. There are good scenes there. As a film, it's very messy. It's very... it just feels like it never properly gets started, and by the time it gets started, you've kind of lost interest and you're not ain't really taking it seriously anymore. Okay, so now for the spoilers, and where do I start? Snoke. What the fuck? I've never... What even was that character? He was upped so much. He was like, oh, Snoke, Supreme Leader Snoke. Oh, he's the big bad. He's the Thanos of Star Wars. He's a wimp. And like, he wasn't even threatening in the scenes they gave him. And there was no build up to his character. There was no build up to his death. There was nothing there. He was just there. Like, he wasn't important at all. And wait, Luke. Since when did Luke become a comedic character? Since when was he the sarcastic dude who was like, I'm fine, he's grumpy and he's old and he's, I don't deal with you youngsters anymore, so I'm just a witty old man now. What? And also that fake out at the end, that Luke is like, oh, I'm gonna sacrifice myself for the cause. From far away though, just from real far away, just so we can have that nice little shot of Luke staring out at the two suns, just like, oh, do you know, that's how it started. Do you know that? That was how Luke Skywalker started in the first one. Did you know that? Yeah, fuck, we know that. We've watched them. We watched all of them. We watched them multiple times. Fuck you. All right, okay. So that was my little emotional rant, just out of the way. Now, seriously speaking, the director, Rian Johnson, I don't feel like he knows how to build characters and how to properly introduce characters and how to build on pre-existing characters. You see it in Snoke, you see it in Luke. He clearly didn't know how to handle these characters with such magnitude. General Hux is suddenly becoming a laughingstock. He's like an idiot now. And the constant emotional drama with Kylo Ren, like, okay, we get it, he's a very emotional human being. But the fact that Adam Driver's emotional acting is all over the place and you can never tell what he's feeling in any scene except distressed. it's not good. And the fact that the only shot they use to show anger is him closing his fist like this. They use that in this, like Arthur, you know the meme? It's the same principle, and that's the only way they know how to show that he's angry, because his acting is just constantly distressed, like he's constipated or something. So Rey, right? When I finished watching The Force Awakens, I was blown away. I was like, holy shit. Rey might be my favorite Star Wars character of all time. Like, she might be my favorite. And in this film, I'm just... Where was she? Like, she was in the film. She was constantly there, and she had a bunch of shit to do. But she was just there. Like, she didn't really serve any purpose to the plot, except talking to Luke, shooting some stuff from the Millennium Falcon. It's just a letdown, to be honest. Okay, so the plotline of sort of grooming Poe to become the new leader. Like, okay, sure, I get it. With Leia not, like, you can't have Carrie Fisher anymore, like, you know, because things. So they're trying to sort of groom Poe to become the new leader, and I see that because he's reckless and he does mistakes in the beginning, and then he learns, and then Finn does the exact same mistake, and he's learned, and he shows that he has learned because he repeats words that other general said. Great. It's too on the nose. It's just like, it's in your face. Oh, look, he learned. Did you see that? He learned. Yeah. And it was just... This is a little bit disappointing. Honestly, my favourite plotline in the entire film was the plotline of Finn and... Is her name Rose? I think. When they go off and they go to, like, the casino and they go to, like, to the races, and you have, like, the emotional magnitude of the rebellion in, like, these little communities. That was nice. That was good. It was good seeing, like, how the rebellion, like, can spark life and hope. What was wonderful about that whole little trip was that we got to see new areas of the galaxy. Like, instead of seeing another desert planet or another forest planet, we got to see, like, where the rich are, like the proper rich. We got to see a planet that looks a little bit like Monaco or Positano or something, like one of those cities where, like, the rich live, and you can clearly tell that they're rich. And that was a nice little touch. Well done. It was a good one. I've already said a little bit about the editing, how all over the place it was, because it was. The first, at least, hour was constant cuts. It was cuts between the plot lines because they didn't know which one to follow. Should we follow Rey and Luke? Should we follow Finn? Should we follow Poe? They just didn't know, so they keep cutting, and Kylo as well. So they kept cutting. And the cuts had nothing to do with one another. Like, we would jump from Rey following Luke to Kylo Ren, to Finn, to Poe. And we just went back and forth, not really having any emotional depth into any of the plot lines. Instead, we just got a low bit of everything. There was no focus to the film for at least half of it. Until they were all together on the ice planet, like the salt planet, there was no focus whatsoever. It was just... It feels like they had so many ideas that they thought, like, oh, this is so cool, we need to have this in the next Star Wars film. The fans are going to love it. And then they sort of just... They didn't know how to narrow it down and focus it into one solid story. And also Mark Hamill's character is just... and I'm saying Mark Hamill's character because that's what they've turned Luke into. They've turned Luke more and more into what Mark Hamill is like in the real life. And that's not what Luke is. That's the problem. Another thing that was a problem, and this is something that Star Wars has struggled with a lot, and it's the mix between animatronics and CG. In this film, it was a little bit painful to watch because, like in Force Awakens and like in Rogue One, they mixed the two. And sometimes you could have, like, animatronics that was so good. They were, like, proper good. And then in the next shot, you have a CG character, and you're like, now this one kind of looks a little bit less good, and this one looks weirdly hyper-realistic, and they kind of don't both fit, because if you want us to believe one thing, then that's good, but if you want us to believe the other thing too, that's on the opposite side of the spectrum, there's gonna be conflict. I mean, like, okay, this is an example, like the strongest example I can think of. You have hyper-realistic CG Snoke here, right? And then you have puppet Yoda. clearly a puppet, like, and something that could have been a cute and nostalgic, like, throwback to the original Star Wars films suddenly becomes lame and cheesy and doesn't fit. And at the same time, Snoke's character now suddenly seems completely fake, and you can't put any sort of gravitas in him. It's just, like, don't get me wrong, there were beautiful characters as well, like the little crystal foxes, love them, great, cutest animals ever. The porks, on point, very good. There were just places where the lines between CG and animatronics, they were too split apart, and you could tell that both were both, and it was bad. So right, here's the last thing I want to talk about, and Jack Howard has talked about it before with Marvel, so I'm going to leave a link to his video in the description. And it is the problem that I feel like Star Wars has stopped taking itself seriously. It's starting to making jokes on their own behalf before anyone else can do it. And I feel like it's because Star Wars is from the 80s, it's cheesy, it's over the top, it's like space melodrama with cowboys and samurais, which is great. It's why we love it. But now they've sort of started thinking in the Marvel and the Disney kind of way that, like, we need to be self-ironic, we need to be sarcastic in everything we do, and we need to be comedic. Like in the beginning when the phone call between Poe and General Hux, and Poe is like phone pranking him. Like, I'm not gonna lie, at first I was like, wait, is this really happening? Are they doing a phone prank on the Empire, like the First Order? And I thought, Jesus, oh, alright, that's very different. And I was like, cool, okay, I kinda like that. But then they sort of kept doing it, with Luke throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder, and it sort of just kept going and going and going, and joke after joke, and until you sort of, you think, okay, it's enough now, like, it's enough, stop making fun of Star Wars, I'm here to watch Star Wars. And I think the problem with that is that they're trying to play with your expectations. They're trying to say like, oh, you thought we're going to be cheesy and like take everything seriously and it's going to be melodramatic, but we're actually going to just take that away from you just before, and we're going to make a joke. And okay, actually, Jack Howard goes over it really well in his video, and I think this very much applies for Star Wars as well. Honestly, my kind of disappointment in the latest Star Wars film, it's not a horrible film, it's just painfully average and okay. And a Star Wars film should never just be okay. Anyway, I've been your boy Vitamins. Until next time, remember to take your vitamins, stay strong and healthy, and I'll see you again very soon.